Hey, what's going on YouTube? In today's video I wanted to talk about my current PC, plans for an upgrade, and a plan for a new build entirely. But before I do so, make sure you watch my previous video because it has information about a giveaway. I'm giving away 3 copies of Chivalry Medieval Warfare, and I will be announcing the winners in my next Q&A video. So in this PC, the case is the NZXT Phantom 410. I decided on this case because it has a more curvilinear look to it compared to some of the other more angular PC cases on the market. I don't really like my electronics to be really rigid and boxy. I like them to have a little bit of a curvature to them. And these cases are really good for displaying out in the open. A lot of people like their cases to be inconspicuous and blend with the rest of their gaming environment, their office environment. But my thinking is, if you're spending so much money on a gaming PC, why not display it loudly and proudly? So that's my current case. My motherboard is the Asus Sabertooth Z77. If you are planning to get a Sabertooth type motherboard like the new Haswell one is the Z87, I definitely recommend that you use a magnetic screwdriver to install the motherboard into the standoffs, because the standoff screw area is very depressed relative to where the thermal armor is. I'm really not sure how well the thermal armor does in comparing direct overclocking benchmarks, but the thermal armor definitely looks really cool. And part of the reason why I had my 8-pin CPU connector routed through the front instead of all the way around back is the thermal armor is blocking one of the exit ports of where the cable management slot for this case is, where you're supposed to route your CPU pin connector. I could have gotten an 8-pin ATX connector, but you know how things get. But moving on, my graphics cards, actually no, before I talk about my graphics cards, my CPU is the Intel i7-3770K, and it's cooled with an all-in-one cooler, the Corsair H100i. The H100i's performance is pretty decent. I'm able to achieve 4.5 gigahertz on this CPU. I think it's a pretty, I don't know, maybe an average, slightly below average overclock. Some people have gotten into 4.7 gigahertz on the Corsair H100i, but if you are interested in the Corsair H100i, definitely get new static pressure fans for it because the default fans suck. I made a previous video about it. My GPUs are the GTX 780s in 2-way SLI, and I am extremely happy with their performance in 3D gaming and 5760 by 1080. I play either on 3 screens in 2D surround or on a single screen, maxing it out in 3D. I can play some older games in 3D on 3 screens. Portal 2 I recently played in 3 screens in 3D, and Fallout 3 I'm playing right now in 3 screens on 3D, but most modern games I like to keep it at a single screen and jack up all the settings because I don't really like turning down settings. So the reason why I wanted to do a completely new PC build is that I have a lot of tech tips on my channel, but I haven't done a complete PC assembly from start to finish yet. So I felt that's something I should do, and that's something I really wanted to do for a long time. The centerpiece of that build is going to be the i7-4930K, the Ivy Bridge E model coming out in September. The Ivy Bridge E is going to launch with 3 SKUs. The first one is going to be the 4960X, I think, and the mid-range Ivy Bridge is going to be the 4930K, and the lower end is going to be the 4820K, which will only be a 4-core 8-thread, but the 4930K will be 6-core 12-thread CPU. And I really wanted that CPU because it definitely helps with video rendering a lot, and being a YouTuber, I render and edit a lot of videos, and streaming on that CPU definitely helps. Some people, when they build a PC and they don't want to build a separate PC for streaming, get some of the 6-core CPUs to help out with that because streaming takes a lot of CPU power. For my graphics cards, I'm debating on whether I should go 3-way SLI or not, or just leave my graphics cards in 2-way SLI. I don't have any room in this case to test 3-way SLI before I move it all into a new build because I only have one more expansion slot. But the thing about 3-way SLI and why I'm so concerned about it is, first, I haven't seen a whole lot of benchmarks for it because a lot of them have been self-reported benchmarks as opposed to benchmarks from professional review websites, and self-reported benchmarks tend to be a little bit more inflated than those from professional websites. And also, what about video RAM? Because I want to play at 5760 by 1080, and video RAM bottlenecking might be a big concern there. So if I'm video RAM bottlenecked by adding another GTX 780, then there wouldn't be any point whatsoever. So I'll definitely have to think really hard about it. the next thing I want to do with the new build is I want to do custom liquid cooling. And it's not so much for the performance advantage. With custom liquid cooling, I'm looking to spend about $180 on a 420 millimeter radiator, so that's three 140 millimeter radiators, and an all-in-one pump reservoir combo from XSPC with a CPU block, some tubing, and some distilled water. The goal of doing custom liquid cooling isn't necessarily for the performance advantage, because when you're only spending $200 on custom liquid cooling, then you're probably only going to get about, 400 megahertz of an additional overclock versus all-in-one liquid cooling. So price per performance wise, it's not a big difference, but it's just the satisfaction of learning about how custom liquid cooling comes together, and it'll look cool in my build. So I have plans for custom liquid cooling. The case, I think I'm going to use the NZXT Phantom 630. I've already seen the case in person at Micro Center, and I'm going to go with the gunmetal gray case. It's big enough for my uses, but not as obnoxiously big as the NZXT Phantom 820. You might as well be working on building a time machine or something with the NZXT 820, because that thing I can't really describe it. But NZXT does have a new case coming out this September. It's the NZXT Phantom 530, I think. Yeah, the 530. And they've responded to fans' concerns, and the side paneling on the 530 goes all the way down here, and it has 8 expansion slots. So the 530 is a very good looking case, but it is a little bit on the small side for me to use with a potentially 3-way SLI custom liquid cooled build. And I'm not going to custom liquid cool my graphics cards, because I'd have to get additional GPU blocks, full cover GPU blocks, and those are pricey, and with the Maxwell 800 series coming out soon, I don't want to spend the effort to add water blocks and then have to disassemble everything, resell everything in preparation for Maxwell, because I like to upgrade my video cards every generation. And with Maxwell, if I already have my custom liquid cooling loop set up, then I'll just buy a GPU with a water block pre-installed. So definitely going to go with the NTXT Phantom 630. For power supplies, I've looked at an EVGA 1300 watt G2 power supply, the Supernova one from EVGA, but I haven't used an EVGA power supply before. I think EVGA is an exotic choice for a power supply, as opposed to some more familiar brands like Seasonic, Rosewell, Corsair, Cooler Master. So if any of you have ever used an EVGA power supply, let me know how that was, whether you dealt with any coil whine issues or whatever, and how that power supply has held up. So 1300 watts is more than enough power. Lastly, I'm going to talk about what motherboard I'm going to choose. I'm probably going to go with an Asus Republic of Gamers board. I don't know how close in proximity new motherboards launch relative to CPUs, but it will use the same chipset and socket, the X79 and LGA 2011. But Asus's boards, like the Republic of Gamers Rampage, and I forgot what the other one is called, like the Maximus Extreme or whatever for the X79 chipset, they've been out of stock, and they haven't been restocking, so they might be hinting at releasing new Republic of Gamers boards. I want to go with a standard ATX board instead of an XL ATX or eATX, because I don't need that many RAM slots, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm definitely looking into Asus, because I'm familiar with the BIOS, and I'm very happy with Asus boards' performances. So when all is said and done, I'm going to delegate this PC as my backup PC, and again, I will have more information and an update on when I have all the parts ordered and when you can expect my complete build guide video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I apologize if this video was a little bit rambly. Be sure to enter my giveaway by watching my previous video and leaving a comment. My name's David, and I'll see you next video.